All right, it's time for another episode of Boardroom RevOps, where we're bringing you valuable tips from RevOps experts so you can make it to the C-suite. I'm James, co-founder of Accounting, the RevOps BI platform. I'm happy to be joined today by the inimitable Jen Igartua. Great to
Ooh,
have you, Jen.
that's so nice. I'm happy to be here.
You probably know Jen is the CEO of Go Nimbly and the mastermind behind RevFest. Jen, what else should folks know about you and or Go Nimbly?
Fun. Okay, I'm so glad you talked about RevFest. We're feeling very proud about doing a RevOps conference at the House of Yes. What else about me? Okay, I have a couple of shows that I do. I do This Week in SaaS, where I cover a topic recently in the news. I try to be funny. Hopefully that comes through. And then I have another little show called RevOps Rants, where I'm actually kind of frustrated about this. Gen Z doesn't know Office Space, the movie, but I built the Office Space, like the desk that Milton had, with the red stapler. I
You have the same.
rebuilt that, but I like took the care to like the minutia. I was on eBay forever getting like the fax machine and the whatever. And then I've shown a couple of young people and they're like, oh, it's a cubicle. And I'm like, no, it's a very important cubicle. So I'm doing that. I also make board games. I actually have one, yeah. Where do I have one? So I made a game called Side Effects. I have a kids version called Hex Effects. We have a bunch of other games that just got picked up at Walmart.
Wow.
So that's a little side hustle. And then I live in Brooklyn. I grew up in Spain. I think that's everything. I think I've given you my entire bio.
I love it. Many layers. I do have to know a bit of a digression. What's your advice on making a board game? What's the creative process there?
Yeah. You have to play test like crazy. Make sure it's fun. I know that seems so silly, but people launch games all the time that are just like not fun. Make sure you play it a bunch and that people have fun playing it. And then the easiest thing is Kickstarter. Spend some money on making a great video. And we just wanted to make a game. I didn't realize we would make a company. We just did a Kickstarter. We had a goal of 12 grand for our game Side Effects. We ended up at like $80,000. And all of a sudden we were like, I guess we make games now. And it's gone really well. So last year we did over 500,000 in sales. So it's like a decent business.
You're creating a conglomerate here. I don't know if there's synergy between RevOps consulting and board games.
So I am so bad at the board game business. Like the first time we made a game, the factory was like upselling me and they were like, do you want to add thicker cards for like 3 cents? I was like, 3 cents? Yes. Do you want gold foil for 50 cents? I'm like, 100%. Like, just, yeah. Like, do you want a magnet on the box for $1? I'm like, that sounds cheap. And by the end of making it, they told us it was the most expensive card game they had ever made. And I was like, I'm just not used to talking in cents. I need to reel it in. So we remade it, did a retail version, and now we're making money.
Funny, I love it. Well, I want to dive deeper into all of that at a later date, but today we're talking go-to-market tech, go-to-market systems. So, GoNimbly does a lot of great systems build work. I think you'd have as good a perspective on kind of the market as anyone. I'm curious, like, really broad question to kick off here, but like, what's the state of the sales intelligence kind of vendor landscape right now?
Yeah, totally. I want to anchor the conversation and say we work with mostly mid market to enterprise level companies. And so, I don't necessarily think the tech stack is always applies. I think when you are a young Series A company, you can test out a lot of young tools. You can, kind of integrate it. Adoption's not that hard. The same, you don't think about the same things when you're trying to build a scalable go to market system. And the way I think about building it as a revenue operator is we're essentially building a product. It's just that our product is built on top of Salesforce and HubSpot and whatever else. And so it's really important to think about, who your users are, how big that team is. So when I'm talking about a mid-market to enterprise level company, I might have hundreds of users. And I think on the sales intelligence, it's funny, since we talked about doing this topic, it has changed. Salesloft and Clari are now one. I'm trying to coin the term cloft for them. I think that would be a really good company name.
I don't know if they love that.
Hey, they haven't said. I'm gonna email their marketing team and
No,
say,
no cease and desist yet.
yeah, free of charge. If you want Cloft, it's yours. And that does change things a little bit, but I don't think in the direction Salesloft and Clary thought. So, if we take a step back, we've had 5 years ago, you needed outreach, you needed Clary for forecasting, you needed Gong for conversation intelligence, and you were using all three. I think there's a really big trend right now, kind of in general, in consolidation. You're seeing all these platforms build each other's tools. The Gong building forecast and engage is like a perfect example of that. You can also look at Chili Piper. Chili Piper is building routing and they're taking over lean data, right? And so like they're all sort of building each other's, and lean data got like a calendaring tool. And so you're seeing it in a bunch of different spaces. And I think that comes from a craving from operators to just have less tools. I think we got very buy happy in like 2020, 2021 when money was flowing, and we bought every tool under the sun. We barely implemented it. And I think all of us are realizing like, oh, okay, I need to make sure that it's adopted. I need to make sure that, teams are using it, which I think is why a platform like Gong is winning right now. Less integrations, less adoption. It's like one tool. And frankly, they're investing so much where a year ago I would have said good enough. Now I'm like, okay, we're here. Their sequencing tool is good. Their forecasting tool is good. We can scale with it. And so, I think that the Salesloft Clari announcement, it was kind of their only move. If we were playing chess, it's not quite a checkmate, but they were like, okay, we got to join forces. It does tell you that they're kind of admitting that, Clari had tried to build, or they bought Groove, right, for sequencing. And I guess they're saying not good enough. And then Salesloft was, building out a forecast product. They had built it out. And I guess they're saying, all right, scratch that. We're coming together.
Easier to just buy the customers or grab the customers as is and kind of go from there, perhaps.
I think so. But I was looking on LinkedIn and stuff. They've had no growth. So I think, I'm curious to see how customers respond to it. But, people are not excited when PE owns the, platform you're using.
I was gonna say, yeah, I totally agree with everything you're saying about moving from like the ZERP era, budgets are lower, but it also kind of feels like the market as a whole is just kind of saturating and maturing as well, and it's a kind of a natural, like mature company evolution, almost from like an investor perspective too. So like
Totally.
let's expand to other markets while our existing market is kind of saturated. So it
Yeah.
sounds like I'm curious if you have a perspective on this. I know it's early-ish in this transition. You made the point that operators are kind of tired of integrating everything. Partially, it's not going super well. As you've seen people move to consolidated platforms, like are things going a lot better? Like you say, like
Mm,
good enough, all the products are better. Like what are the outcomes you're seeing versus
yeah.
like 2021, 2022?
No, I think it's better. It's less shelfware. It's kind of lower tech budget. So bottom line wise, it's good. And then it's way less things like integration errors, half-used platforms, things not integrated all the way. And so I think the promise is there. Consolidation is good for everybody. I think that the other tidbit that I talk about a lot when I'm looking at these trends is we have this part of our tech stack that's being consolidated. I'd say like the big boys are getting consolidated, right? Like the core platforms. And then on the other side, we have a lot of promise of building your own tech. And we are going back to building. I'm seeing operations teams getting much more technical. And that is a pendulum that's been swinging. I would say, again, 5 years ago, we were just doing everything declarative. We actually at GoNimbly had a hard time staffing engineers. We had engineers on the bench. We were asking them to basically do point and click, like build flows and build automations. And frankly, they're too expensive for that. But that's what we had to do because our customers didn't want to build in code. I think we had there was a trend saying, no, everything has to be declarative. You have to be able to see it. And then now I think, obviously the promise of AI, all these new tools, this workflow automation, I think we're all getting this obsession with automating manual tasks. And that means that a lot of people are building, on top of, I would say the old school or like the products that have been around for a while are your Zapiers and your Workados, and they are stable and they are good and they have lots of integrations. And then you've got your hot new tools like your N8N and your Makes and even Clay that are also fueling this, I don't know, excitement around building again.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of the rise of the go-to-market engineer as well in that space. Ultimately, I'm excited. I really love building. I think it's fun to build point solutions. On the other hand, it's, who's managing these? What happens when the guy who built left it? What happens when you've built in every single one of these tools? So now in Salesforce, I have an account status changing and I don't know who did it because we used up all the integration users, and all of a sudden I just see account status changed by integration user 3. And I don't know if that's a Slack bot or a Clay table or a Zapier or Workado or fill in the blank. So that's the one thing that I'm like, all right, I want to build, custom to our customers. I also need to think about how do we make sure that it doesn't bite us.
Yeah, I'm so curious about that. Like, I guess first of all, would love to hear your opinion on How much are you actually seeing these things deployed in real life? I'll say, like everyone sees like the LinkedIn thought leaders.
Yeah.
What I love with the 40 step, solve all your problems, outsource your entire BDR team with this one flow. It's hard to understand like what's actually being put into production and successful. Like, are there use cases or examples you see that work well?
Yeah, I actually have. So not to the level of people's, I don't know, here's this template that helped me build a $5 million business overnight. I'm not seeing that. I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying that's not what we're seeing in the mid-market and the enterprise. What we are seeing is marketing is adopting AI the most. So they're the ones that, a lot of content creation and research and all that kind of stuff. And they're the highest adopters. CS, the least adopters, as you can imagine. And the interesting thing is like the bread and butter use cases, they're not anything you're not expecting. So I don't know, take sales, for example, account research, that's working. Get a button inside of your Salesforce that even can push into Slack that right before your meeting does the research on the person and the company and gives you insight into have they ever been a customer? What's going on in the news? What should we know about their industry? Why did they reach out? Have they engaged with our marketing in a way that is like really easy to digest? That's sort of a really powerful part of AI, I think, is consolidating information and giving it to you in a very easy to read way.
Mhm.
We're seeing a lot of like handoff automation in a really great way. So think about SDR to AE handoffs or, AE to CSM after it's closed one and making sure that, again, all that information is easy to digest, which is helping the customer not have to repeat themselves, over and over, which is, I think, a quintessential like silo syndrome scenario that everybody talks about is as a customer, I don't want to repeat myself. So I think we're fixing that. And then I'm like, I don't have logo rights. So I'll just say we work with some like very big AI companies that you guys all know and love. And they're doing very cool stuff. Also in CS. Also, we work with Intercom, who has Fin, which is an AI kind of CS support ticket manager, and it automatically closes tickets for you. And, working with these really innovative companies, they are seeing a lot of results in being able to automate the easy support tickets
Hmm.
and being able to route effectively. We're
Knowledge based
also, yeah,
answering and things like that too that are well defined.
yeah. Inbound is also an area where we're seeing a lot of ability to automate. So when somebody comes into a contact us form, actually being able to see, okay, is this supposed to actually go to support? Is this real? Are they qualified? And then routing accordingly. We no longer have to have, very robust programs for that. And I'll kind of tack on, one more. So that's on inbound, but we're also on outbound. We are automating emails. And I know that that seems scary and nobody wants AI to automate emails. But if you automate the first touch in an actual thoughtful way, we have a customer of ours that doubled their reply rate by automating their emails. So taking it away from the SDRs, because turns out they write very lengthy, bad emails sometimes. And the AI that we've built really just goes, hi, I saw this about you, thought it'd be relevant. Here's a relevant case study. Would you like to meet? Jen, and then sometimes PS and something kind of personal, like I saw you on podcast X,
Hmm.
but short and sweet and curated, that's working too. And so we are seeing in pockets. Now, what we're not seeing is, okay, we have now a headless CRM on top of a bunch of unstructured data and the AI has been running loose and it's like fixing our business. I'm not seeing that LinkedIn post in reality.
What is that's so interesting, and I want to come back to some of those use cases as well. But what is your take on like the headless CRM? Like I hate to be like a bit of a luddite, but it's hard for me to kind of imagine that, and maybe I just can't see far enough into the future. But to me, it feels like process, data quality, all the foundational things that you as a business would have to define yourself. And like a lot of the promises of the headless CRM, in my opinion, are shoving a tool at a problem that's more foundational. I don't know if you agree or if you have a take on kind of where that the CRM market goes.
I agree it's not here yet. I agree that it is still important for companies to focus on their data architecture, consistently tracking things like I need a start and end date and products consistent on every opportunity. I think that's still all really important. That said, I do think we're going to get to a place where, I mean, if you think about what AI can do with the internet, like it can go search the internet and bring you back answers, and that's unstructured data, and that's data that tells different stories, and that's opposite data. And so I do think we're going to get to a point where, and in some cases we already have, you can put a little chatbot on top of your data, ask it questions, and get pretty good. So I think we'll get to a place where we don't need to structure it as much. I don't think we'll ever get to a place where we don't have to track who are our customers, what did they buy, when do they have to be billed, like all of that. I still think for no other reason than SOC 2 compliance. Like we need to have that really consistent in the right architecture. Opportunity infrastructure is a thing that I talk about all, like every single customer. If they don't have it, that's one of the first things that I, talk through. So I don't think it goes away completely, but I do think that there's a world where we can let the AI loose. And if you're listening to this on audio, I put that in quotes, and be able to get insights from it, especially on a one-to-one. Like I'm just talking to it and saying, hey, what happened with this account? I think it can. And we'll get there.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. But to summarize, though, what I'm hearing from you, a lot of the AI use cases right now, as one would expect based on the developments in the LLMs, is really around unstructured data, research, getting a little bit more context.
I think context and giving reps data at their fingertips is one of the most useful use cases of AI and one of the easiest. It's not expensive to spin that up.
What do you think? I'm also curious, like, I'm looking ahead into the future, and it doesn't mean I'm necessarily good at predicting the future, but I'm wondering if, companies get better at using LLMs, web scrapers to get these data points. Does this just start to look again like, 2 years ago with Zoom Info, where everyone has access to the same data and like all of this value goes away?
Yeah, 100%.
We're just always on the treadmill of, always needing to be ahead of the masses before a channel gets spammed.
Yeah, which is why you should do it right now. Because people are seeing impact from new tactics. I think this is the messaging that Clay's really pushing, this idea of go-to-market alpha, which is like, for me, I just kind of call it, you need a growth marketing mindset, when it comes to sales and marketing. And growth marketers were always testing. I'm going to change this button. I'm going to try this offer. I'm going to, move this, call to action over here. And they're, attempting to get people to basically convert to free trials faster all the time. That's the same kind of thing that we need to do in outbound, for example. Try different offers, try different subject lines, try different research, try different signals, and see what works. Because I don't know, 10 years ago when you emailed me, hey, Jen, I saw you went to UNC, go Tar Heels. I was like, they know me. You send that to me, I'm automatically deleting. So that's going to happen again. But I do think it's a competitive advantage right now because companies take a long time to make change. So if you're one of the people that can move quickly, do it.
Yeah. To kind of round out this topic, maintenance and tracking, you kind of kicked off by talking about integration user 3. How do I know, what the heck just changed this account status? Any advice on how folks should be thinking about this? Or maybe the better question is like, with that in mind, what advice do you give folks before they dive into some of this like go-to-market engineering or automation?
Okay, so 100% your entire team should just be playing right now. Like get yourself a playground. You need AI literacy amongst your team to do anything cool and to have any cool ideas. You kind of have to know what's available to you. So I don't want, this fear of building, point solutions to stop people from trying to build. But after you're done playing in whatever tool you've decided on, I think a great director of RevOps is going to choose their tech stack. It's going to choose like primarily one workflow automation tool to say, hey, we're going to live here. Whether it's, hey, we use Salesforce flows for things that are like inside of Salesforce and mostly Salesforce. We're just going to keep it here. We're not going to pull the data to push it back in. And then maybe you're going to find one workflow automation tool. I don't really care what it is. I have some preferences. Zapier doesn't get like a lot of the hot and exciting things, but they have security. They have like 8,000 integrations. Like there's a world where like that's, the one you do. I also like Workato. It's a good integrator between it. It can manage massive amounts of data. So I think they're really fabulous. I really like Clay for enrichment and for doing things like one-off. I think it's very good at that. The account research piece, it's very good at. And so I think you need to choose. And 8N, I'm less hot on. I think it's very cool and very fun, but I just worry about the security piece and that they're early. So I don't know. You have to choose your tech stack and make sure. I don't think it's a documentation thing. Everybody sort of like pushes the documentation. I've built enough flow diagrams to know that it gets old really quickly. I think that you should log what your outcome was. I think that you should you have a change log that says, all right, we built XYZ automation. This is when it was built. Here's a document as to why, and here's where you can find it. But I don't need you documenting the steps because I'm always going to just open it.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, great. We're almost at time here. I'm curious, and maybe even to go back to the beginning, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Platform consolidation, do you think there's a winner there? You can't go wrong? I think you're a Gong fan if memory serves. Like, is Gong going to win and why?
I mean, I think they're already winning. So I've definitely hitched my wagon to Gong. I think they're the horse that's winning in this race. And I think that I did a lot of research when I was sort of making that decision of who do I want to like really partner with. And some of our customers have other tools, by the way. Like we work with all of them. It's not that I don't think that you can be successful in Outreach or Salesloft or anything else. But the reason why, if I was implementing today or making a switch today, I would pick Gong is because they have the biggest like engineering chops and the most innovation there, because it is one platform. They didn't go buy a bunch of different ones. And because if you look at the innovation they've had 1 year ago to today, like the amount of features that they've rolled out. And I'm not sure if it's announced yet, but whatever. They're also building like orchestration layer so that you can do some automation within Gong based on Gong data. And I'm like, great, this is something I can build an entire kind of go-to-market business on. And sellers really like Gong. And so when your users like it, it's just like a hell of a lot easier to kind of adopt. So that's why I'm betting on Gong. And frankly, I don't know, like, man, I am a gambler. And it's like, I cannot imagine being at the casino and, having to put $1,000 down on Gong, Salesloft, Clari, or Outreach and not picking Gong. Like, I don't know what else I would pick. I think the last bucket is like new. It's like, okay, great. There's lots of new tools that are encroaching on all of them. We're watching that space, but I don't have anything that's a platform yet.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a new platform like replacing like a Gong right now, just based on how far along they are. But I guess people have said that in the past about other platforms as well.
Totally.
So
Yeah. You got to keep innovating.
the orchestration layer inside is really interesting too. We hear like in our sales processes for accounting, like so many people want to just take more action on their Gong data, and so to the extent they're building something else out to do that, that'll be
Yeah.
pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, and I know we're wrapping up, but one of the things I would say, Gong plus Clay is really powerful. Getting all of your Gong data in Snowflake, especially if you have a strong data team, also really powerful. And then I think what I'm hoping Orchestrate does, we don't know it yet. It's not released, but from what I've seen, just being able to do some of the kind of, okay, the deal has just closed, give me a summary of every call and what's been happening so I can hand that over to a CFO, and having that as an automated workflow, because you mostly want to give them things from calls. When you're handing off SDR to AE or AE to CSM, what you want to tell them is, here's what we talked about. Here's what they care about. Here's what we committed to. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that'll be cool to see. Last question here for you, Jen. Take everything we talked about today. How should we think about this impacting the average tech company? I don't know, Series B, C, D. What's going to happen to RevOps and these functions a few years from now?
Yeah, if I think, I'm going to take your question a little bit and more say what happens to this role. Like, who is going to, you have to capitalize on this. If I'm an operator, I'm going, okay, there's a lot of change. There's new technology. There's the promise of AI. At the same time, execs care about RevOps now. You're seeing like VCs recommend RevOps way earlier. You're seeing data from Forrester and Gartner saying that companies with RevOps perform better than without on the public market. And so this is kind of, they would tell me as an operator, like, okay, this is kind of my golden age. Like everybody's paying attention to me. The world is changing. And for a long time, RevOps meant, shit, we're doubling the size of our sales team. We need to go update, our tech stack and our rules. That's not what they're asking us now. They're asking like, hey, this is a machine. Where are the biggest bottlenecks? Where do we need to change? Where are we behind? And I've said this, it's a cheesy way of saying it, but like RevOps has been training for this. We've been wanting to be operators. We've been wanting to do the interesting work. We just haven't been given the chance. And I think right now is when companies are listening to this team. And if you are somebody that is truly not just an operator, but someone that's strategic, can be good at storytelling, you can get a promotion right now. This is like a time when you can have that big role.
Amazing. I think it's a perfect place to cap it. Very inspiring. Jen, thanks so much for hopping on and spending some time with me today. It was really great chatting with you.
Thanks, James.